who should Israel Adesanya fight next? Well, that all depends on what the UFC's plan is for him moving forward. If the UFC's plan is to have him fight the winner of Dricus du Plessis or Sean Strickland, then that's one answer. If the UFC down the line thinks that he could once again fight for the belt, maybe not in his next fight, but maybe after 2 or 3 fights, well, then that's one answer. Another answer would be, okay, well, maybe the UFC no longer thinks of him as a title challenger. Maybe the UFC no longer thinks of him as someone who will be the champion. Well, then that's another answer. So there's all these answers and all these possible opponents depending on what the UFC's plan is for him. So let's start by going down all the plans, and then we'll go with who the opponents are that fit into that plan. So if the UFC wants to get him right back into a title shot and give him the winner of Dricus du Plessis or Sean Strickland, as we've been told that that's going to be the next middleweight title fight, if the UFC plans on having him fight the winner of that fight, it would probably have to be somebody in the top 5 on a win streak, someone who they think highly of. It would have to be somebody like Khamzat Chimaev. It would have to be somebody like Brandon Allen. It would have to be somebody who's highly ranked and on a nice little win streak. I know the UFC said that the winner of Robert Whittaker and Khamzat Chimaev would get the next title shot, but we were also told the winner of Khamzat Chimaev and Kamaru Usman would get the next title shot. So things change a lot in this sport, and things change a lot within this company. So just because we've been told somebody's going to get the next title shot, that doesn't guarantee that fighter will actually get that title shot. So if the plans are for Adesanya to fight once and then to fight again for the title, it would have to be somebody like Khamzat Chimaev or Brandon Allen or Imanov or somebody highly ranked in the UFC middleweight division. So that's the first answer. If the plan is to get him right back into the title shot, then it would be someone like that. If the plan is down the line to get him to a title fight, but just not have him fight the winner of DDP and Sean Strickland, then it would be somebody like Jack Hermanson or someone along those lines. Someone who's highly ranked, they're in the top 15, they're someone who Adesanya hasn't fought before, and they're someone who a win over them doesn't get them to a title shot. No one would view Adesanya versus Hermanson as a title eliminator, but that would be a fight that would get him on the right track. If he were to win that fight, he would have to win another fight, and then that fight would get him to a title shot. So if we view him still as someone who could wear the middleweight belt, but we're not going to give him a title shot coming off just one win, it would be Jack Hermanson or someone like him. Then there's a third option of, let's just get this guy in fun fights. Okay, he's lost the belt. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. He's lost to the 2 guys who are going to fight for the belt next. And Anderson Silva was once in this same spot. He had lost twice to Chris Weidman. So in his next fight, of course, there was an injury involved, and that's why it took so long for him to get back into the cage. But in his next fight, after coming off the losses to Chris Weidman, they matched him up with Nick Diaz. So let's go with that option for him, which would be just fun fights. And if we go with fun fights, Adesanya said he's not going to go up to 205. He said that he doesn't have any plans of going back to light heavyweight. He said that that was a fun little experiment, but he has no plans on making a run at light heavyweight. So he's not moving up a weight class to get a fresh coat of paint. So 205 is off the table right now. So that would mean fun fights in the middleweight division. And in my opinion, the funnest fight out there for him, if we're just going based on a good fight, would be Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland was someone who was on track to fighting Adesanya for the title at one point in time. When he had that great run, when he knocked out Jacare, it was really looking like, hey, Kevin Holland is going to be the next title challenger. This guy is 1, maybe 2 wins away from the belt, and him and Adesanya had a little back and forth. Holland was setting up that title fight, but He lost a few fights in a row. He lost to guys like Derek Brunson and Marvin Vettori, so that fight went away. Now we can put that fight back together, but it won't be for a title. It'll just be for fun. Like, hey, in the past, these guys were on track to fight. Holland fell off. Adesanya was at the top of the game. Now Adesanya is no longer at the top of the middleweight division, so let's just have these guys fight. Who cares about rankings? Who cares about any of that stuff? It's an interesting story because it could have happened a long time ago. Now, because of the way things have played out, we can make that fight. So if they want to go with a fun fight, it would be Kevin Holland. Now, if they really want to go extreme, which would be, look, we don't see Adesanya fighting the winner of DDP or Sean Strickland. We don't see him being able to beat the elite of the elite. We don't see him being able to beat Khamzat Chimaev or some of the other guys in that top 5, 8, 10 range. We don't see him being able to beat those guys. Let's go with truly a loser leaves town match. Not literally, it's going to be the end of someone's career, but basically it's going to be the end of that person's dreams of being the champion. And that would be a rematch with Paulo Costa. If Adesanya were to lose to Paulo Costa, that would basically signal the end of his run as a top middleweight. If Paulo Costa were to lose again to Adesanya, well, then that would clearly show us that here's a guy who has lost to a lot of great fighters in this division, and he would be down 0-2 against Adesanya, who is 0-2 against the guys who are going to fight for the title next. With a loss, Costa would prove that he's not a contender in this division. So those options, if they were just to go with, okay, we're going to go with the worst case scenario first. If he can't beat Paulo Costa, then there really isn't anyone he can beat. This is a guy who he beat in the first fight when he was champion. Now he's fallen off. Costa's coming off a loss. Let's see who's still relevant in the UFC middleweight division. Let's go with that fight. It would be extreme because Adesanya easily defeated Costa in the first fight, but Costa's made a bunch of excuses. He was drinking wine. He wasn't himself that night. He didn't show up that night. Okay, well, if that's true and you still lose to Adesanya, well, then that just shows us that you're not a contender and we can move on from you. So those would be the scenarios for Adesanya on who he should fight next. One of those 4 scenarios is what it's going to be. Now, of those 4 scenarios, or just in general, I think the best fight for him right now, if the UFC still views him as someone who's going to be champion, Jack Hermansson is the way to go. Of course, that's a tough fight. But if you want to be the champion, if you want to be top dog in this division again, you have to do that. Robert Whittaker did that. He fought a bunch of tough guys to get back to Adesanya when Adesanya took the belt from him. He had to do that. He had to rebuild. So if they still view him in that light of, hey, in a few fights, in maybe a year or two, he'll be champion again, Jack Hermansson or somebody on that level would be the way to go. Now, if he fights Hermansson in his next fight and beats Hermansson, that won't get him to a title shot. He'll have to fight again, and then that's where the next person would have to be higher ranked and in that light of, okay, if Adesanya beats this person, he's the clear-cut number 1 contender. So this fight, this plan for the UFC, this scenario that I've laid out, that's just a launch pad to get to the first scenario that I mentioned, which was, okay, he's 1 fight away from fighting for the belt again. So that's a good option. Another option that I think is a good one is just fun fights. Who are the fun fights? Who are the fun matchups? And Kevin Holland, I think, would be a fun fight for him. I think it would be pretty interesting, the build-up, and I think the fight would be pretty good. So those would be the 2 scenarios I would go with. Either you fight someone like a Jack Hermansson or somebody who's highly ranked but won't get you immediately to a title shot, or we just go for fun fights. So you've heard my opinion. You've heard what I've had to say. Now it's time for you to sound off in the comment section below. Hit me up. Who do you want to see Israel Adesanya fight next? Do you want to see him fight some of the names that I mentioned in this video? Are there other opponents out there that you think would make great fights for Adesanya moving forward. Who do you think Israel Adesanya should fight in his next fight? Just drop me a comment in the comment section below. And also, don't forget to like this video, share this video, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video.